and we will have a problem with the inventory 3 to 5 years. Yes, I agree with you. However, this is the problem. If we go into bankruptcies, insolvencies, we go into major debt, we go into so many things, right? And we create a complete disaster today. All right, so today let's talk about the banner cycle. Is it a myth? Is it an 18-year cycle that it happens? I have my own theory based on this, I would say, myth or graph. How I kind of see it, we'll get into that. I'll show you the banner cycle. I'll show you the peak. I'll show you the curse of the peak, what has happened. I will also bring up a list what I believe will happen in the future, because this is why you're here for. Like, most people want to know what will happen moving forward. Obviously, you have to make your own research and decision, and you should be considering making the decision your own. But look, it is important to take everybody's opinion at this point. This is how I look at it. So I will share my screen. I made a PowerPoint slide, 10-15 slides, just so we can kind of go over it, what has happened, how this banner cycle, which some people believe is a myth, some people believe it is 1000% accurate, and how it has been followed so far. So let's get right into the cycle. So the 18-year cycle, real estate, you can see exactly the winner's curse right here. And it has been actually right on point. We see the 1954, 72, 1990, 2008, and 2026. I would also like to add that these cycles, these graphs, also it could be dependent on the actual period. It could be plus minus a year, right? Just because of everything that is happening, because these graphs are not only impacted by singular things or on the graph, and these graphs and the economies are getting much more complicated, and they're getting much more dense. However, banner cycle 1875 has predicted this particular 18-year cycle. So we can see here that the cycle peak is exactly at 2026, and most, I would say, experts, people in the field, feel that accumulation of everything and the cycle is basically ending, right? So the deep recession is predicted to be from 2027 to 2030. But let's move to the next slide. So we will talk about 2012 to 2015, the recovery phase, 2016 to 19 speculation phase, which we went through 2020, 2022, was the pandemic boom, and that banner's graph has shifted. It feels like it was distorted in this particular period, which will cause more trouble moving forward, and we'll get to that. So 2022 to 2026 was structural stress, and we know what was happening. People were kind of trying to, I would say, level themselves out, where they stand, how much they owe, what the debt ratio is, and all of that stuff. And it took years, right, of, I would say, stress and panic. But most people, they believe only that the market go up. Well, like, Canadian real estate market is bulletproof, right? But listen, it has cycle ends like this one. So possible turning point is from 2026 to 2030. If you're asking me, in particular, I believe nothing extravagant will happen before 2030, and then we'll get to 2030 and 2032, which is the recovery opportunity. It is extremely important to note that when we're talking about a recovery opportunity, in my personal opinion, I don't believe that the markets will explode. We will not see or feel that, 20, 30% annual increases in real estate. Like, I think that game is over and is going to be over for a long time. So let's get into these slides. So 2012 to 2015, the recovery phase after 2008 financial crisis, central banks kept interest rates extremely low, and that is very important to note, which kept cheap credit pushing investors back into housing, right? So it created that opportunity to hold that financial crisis, even though it was on its knees, but to kind of like keep it or move it forward, right? So the key idea here for viewers is the recovery phase begun from 2012 to 2015. Now, moving forward, 2016 to 19, acceleration and speculation phase. Foreign investment surged in Toronto and Vancouver. Investors and speculators increased dramatically. Condo pre-construction sales exploded, and governments introduced foreign buyers tax. So they introduced that to kind of trigger that market, to kind of cool it off. But it did not help, because obviously people were finding other ways, and there was already a lot of money online and a lot of money invested, and that, I would say, wheel was already moving in that direction, right? And there was no stopping, and keeping the interest rates extremely low and promising interest rates to be low for a long time. We'll get into that in a second here. So basically, housing was no longer just a shelter, it became an investment vehicle, right? And everybody knows that at the time of the peak, I spoke to many clients, I spoke to many people, acquaintances, had many phone calls, and it was just a bloodbath. Like, nobody cared. I'm like, why are all of us or most of you doing this? Because who is going to be left? Well, I don't care. As long as I buy it and my kids have it, everybody can rent from me, because I want to be the one accumulating everything. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, do you believe that the market can shift? And they said, no. Why would it shift? Canada will not allow that. What are you talking about? Why will they not allow it? I mean, every market has cycles, right? And even in this example, a banner cycle, somebody that brilliantly came up with this graph even drew it out for, decades ahead. Anyways, let's move to the next slide. 20 to 2022, pandemic boom phase, central banks cut rates to near zero. And we have experienced that. Like, it was a chaos. And I feel, ladies and gentlemen, that people felt or sensed or they got the taste of that luxury, that fake, unsustainable luxury, lust, whatever you want to call it, and they immediately got hooked on it. Cheap money, cheap credit, let the wheel turn, and who cares? They will not shut the lights on us because everyone is having fun. Anyways, remote work triggered a housing migration boom. Prices in many regions jumps between 30 to 40%. This created the largest housing bubble in Canadian history. And then when I personally say this to people, whether they're from Vaughan, Toronto, Oshawa, Pickering, Niagara Falls, Windsor, London, you name it, right? When I shared this and I believe that Canadian housing will crash. I was saying this years before many other jumped on YouTube platform. uh, like I was looked at as a clown. I'm like not knowing what I was talking about. My biggest problem, I'll reveal the secret. I was ahead of the game. So when you're ahead, like by 6 months or a year, and when everybody's buying and spending and everything is moving in the right direction, and I say, well, an end will come to this. And they say, what are you talking about? Like, I'm making money hand over fist. I'm buying this, I'm buying that. Like, they're in this zone or that illusion. Um, I mean, you guys know, like many of you, and I want to thank you, being a part of this channel for years now. Like, you guys are liking, subscribing, and sharing, and that's also the reason why this channel grew. And this channel helped other people make maybe a better decision, or maybe sit down and kind of reroute how they can make other decisions in their life. It's not only one side of the story. I believe we all should listen to both sides of the story and make the decision by themselves. Well, please subscribe, hit the like button, share this video, and let's move forward. So 2022 to 2024 interest rate shock. Banks just boom, aggressively raised this interest rates. Mortgage costs doubled for many buyers. Sales volume collapsed in many markets. Investor demand dropped off cliff extremely sharply. So the speculative phase began breaking down, and this is the after effect. This is the tail of the promise. And the promise for a long time on public network and television and everywhere else was that the interest rates will stay firm, and they will stay low for a long time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, just gave more security to everyone else. And yet they pulled the rug, they pulled the floor, they pulled everything, whatever they could pull within the record time, and they increased. And obviously, it got literally destroyed. Not overnight, but it was a slow drain. Anyways, let's move forward. Now we're getting to 2024 and 2026. This is where the structural stress is visible and is appearing, and the construction costs are up between 40 and 50% since 2020. So developer charges exceeded 150,000 per home in some cities, and the banks required more than 70% pre-sale before financing the projects. So now the final is created where people are breathing extremely heavy, and the demand for most of these projects in order to get the green or to get to the lending or to get to anywhere, the bar has been raised extremely high. And like obviously the cracks are not visible now. The cracks are huge, they're potholes, right? So in the next slide, real estate resale was cheaper to buy than obviously the new home. Construction company insolvencies are rising sharply. Just note this: business failures in construction jumped over 30% in 2024. So this is insane. A lot of people will get that effect moving forward. And now after these slides, we're getting to the future predictions. But this is where people are realizing that it makes no sense, because someone buying materials at the premium, paying for all this red tape for permits and everything else, putting themselves in the risk, and finally completing the project that is way overpriced, and there's no chance of any profits. Well, why would they do it? I mean, like, people do all kinds of stuff. I get it, but most of people love, or they should assume, that risk and reward. It's called business, right? That's why people are in business. So this is a crazy number, right? Consumer insolvencies in Canada reached the highest level in 15 years in 2024. And this is where you are here in the graph. So remember the graph. Here it is. Look at it. And this is exactly where we are. So I showed you exactly what has happened in the cycle, and this is where we are. So the accumulation of everything that has been said in the past 10-15 minutes on this particular video, you could probably agree that everything happened accordingly to whatever we said. Now, moving forward is where we get to the actual cycles. So the property prices, there's the recovery phase, there's the mid-cycle, we went through that, there's the explosion phase that was just before the pandemic, and then during the pandemic aggressively exploded, and then we're getting into the recession phase. Now, 2027 and 2030 is the potential downturn phase. This is where the cycle predicts the deeper stress possible outcome. Mortgage renewal at higher rates. We already know that. Million plus Canadians will have to renew, and they're going to feel that particular stress. Investor liquidation, stalled construction pipeline, falling new housing supply. If builders stop building today, those homes do not exist 3 to 5 years later. So that creates a pipeline failure. And yes, I know some of you already have commented on that, and I would like to explain my 2 cents on this particular topic when it comes to the builders and when it comes to the lack of building today, and we will have a problem with the inventory 3 to 5 years. Yes, I agree with you. However, this is the problem. If we go into bankruptcies, insolvencies, we go into major debt, we go into so many things, right? And we create a complete disaster today. The recovery phase lasts longer than 3 to 5 years. So most builders hope or predict, look, I will build in 3 to 5 years and I will sell these, same homes in Vaughan, north of Toronto, for $1.8 million at 3,000 square feet, because that's the math. So I'm just going to wait, and this is what's going to happen because the supply will lack. Well, let me ask you another question. Let's say you're right. Let's say you do that. You have a piece of land and you will build a home and it'll be worth $1.8 million in your head and everything is fine. But what if all of the neighborhood or the entire Vaughan is selling the same identical product resale for $750,000? Where's your math? Where's the logic, right? Because everything has to be in accordance. Now, what can happen in between? It can happen that we recover some parts of our economy, that construction gets back on the table, that people start moving back to Canada for maybe safety, maybe opportunity, maybe something along those lines. But just imagining that we will stop here and then we're gonna start building at the current price or at the peak price in 5 years, I think that's ludicrous. And there's no way that that's gonna happen. Anyways, just my opinion. So 2030, 2032, recovery opportunity phase. Historically, after downturns, distressed assets appear, land prices fall, strong investors accumulate property. This is where the cycle suggests the next buying opportunity begins. And this is the banner 1875. You see how we have different cycles. We have cycles that last for 16 years here. Now, this is the banner cycle forecast from 2015 to 2035. So this is 20 years. I'll just go into some of these notes, how some of these years were behaving, and we were classified them in like this is the weight. Like I'm not saying markets will crash or not, but this is the weight of how people will feel and how the stress factor can involve. So we'll classify them into good, fair, excellent, and stuff like that. Like you'll see it in a second. But let's go with 2015. So let us all agree or disagree. You can comment on this, obviously, on YouTube right here on the channel. I do not erase my comments, so everybody should know what we're talking about. So in 2015, good times. So bull market, asset price rising, economy optimism. In 2015, I felt that. I was in the market. It was great, ladies and gentlemen. And then 2015 high price year, predicted the peak, good year to sell. However, 2017, I went through that. Hard times started to begin. 2018, it was a hard time. 2019 was a panic year, and I remember that. I'm not saying the prices went down or prices went up, but just the word on the street, because in 2019, people already started saying, well, this is too much. I don't know what's going on. Like, my pay and my income, and I cannot support. And it's like you feel that pressure almost in the air, right? So I felt that. And then 2020, obviously hard times mentally, pushed and pressed. I'm not saying prices went down. I'm just saying the push, the pressure, right? People were pressured. At one point, real estate halted to zero almost in 2020. For, I would say, 6-7 months, it was like a dive, and it was extremely difficult, obviously for other reasons as well. But then in 2021, hard times, very hard times. People were lining up, people were bidding, people were losing their shirt and their head, and like there was like so much panic that they will never be able to buy a house or a condo ever in their life, ever again. Okay. And then what happened is that was that pressure, right? It continued to 2022, 2023. Obviously, it was still hard. And then here in 2024, good times. Prices begin to rise, early stage of a bull cycle. Now, this depends on the market, right? Like this is what it says here. It's hard to say. Some people say in other provinces, hey, look, like we have not felt anything wrong in other provinces aside British Columbia and Ontario, right? And I tell them, look, because of us in Ontario and British Columbia, you felt or you experienced that boom in your market. But when we dry up here, you're going to die. Not literally, but like the prices can decline by 30-40% overnight because there's no push from the head, right? Which is British Columbia and Southern Ontario. That's the engine. That's the power of Canada. And if that slowly dies or evaporates for the meanwhile, well, guess what's going to happen to you guys? I mean, it's a catastrophe. Now, we have seen that in 2025, Banner sees the continued economic growth, recovery, confidence building, and we have seen that many people, I had many critics, and that's okay. Like good times are coming, spring boom, June boom, January boom. Everybody predicted that boom in their head, like now it's the year. We're going to get ready. I listed in 2023, no good. 2024, no, this 2025. Like, are you kidding me right now? You lost $250,000 just to hang by a thread, and now you want the market to explode on you so you can recover your losses? Like that's that magic or I don't know what has happened, but it is what it is. Now, high price year, forecast market peak, ideal year to sell assets. Banner models show this is a major top. So this is where we get to the higher price. And when I mean that, the pressure build up for all these years and the high price, this is it. People are not able to get that high price now. They're not. This is it. If you exit it, you exit it, and that's it. Like, you know what you're doing further. If not, you are probably stuck in between those two cycles. Now, 2027 predicted to be a hard year, and 2028 by Banner is predicted to be a panic year. Major predicted crash. Banner markets. This is a crisis year to 1929 or 2008. Now, many folks, followers, viewers, subscribers on this channel did mention 2028, that it could be a potential of an extremely hard, pressured, drainy, bleeding year. It will continue obviously in 2029, 2030, and then we can see again the good times. And it does happen in some cycles or most cycles. Once people see that graph kind of go up again, then people start loading it. Like people that waited on the fence for a long time, they started to load, and then you see that boom, that panic explosion where people say, "Oh my gosh!" Not like now we're getting again into the FOMO cycles, and everything kind of repeats. So 2035 could be the next major top and potential if people are following the cycles, whether it's banner cycles, their own cycles. 2035 could be again that, cliff where people will probably have to decide, okay, what's my next move, right? So I sincerely hope that you gained truly value out of this video. I tried doing my best to explain my own personal vision, to explain the banners cycle in a way how I see it. And please put your comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel. A lot more coming, and I'll see you in the next one.